brought up the point, where's your hurricane ties? Where's the tie this all down? And we really should have metal straps that come from this wall and follow basically this tie vec here. It comes around the floor joist and comes down, basically tying these two walls together. Okay? That'll vary with every construction, because depending on what size your wall is and everything else, you get the straps that match. So, you know, there's no one strap for that. You need to follow the design in it as to how many straps you need, what distance you need them. That'll be in the specs for any construction drawing you have. But there is an effort to tie that all together, not just relying on the sheathing out here tying it together or toenailing tying it together. There's actually a metal connector that comes down and makes sure that none of that can move. Okay? So we got that up. Now, what are we going to do? Let me find my little gadget to run the slideshow. Are we ready to go? Almost? You found your people? Savario is gone? He's still hunting. I don't know if he got everybody he needs. He'll show up in just a minute. Okay. We're going to do lateral support insulation and moisture control. Remember, you don't backfill until the wall's supported somehow on the inside. Okay, you've got to have proper support on the inside before you throw dirt at it. And so this floor is part of lateral support. The wall, top of this wall can't move. The bottom can still move. We've got it tied in with some bolts. It's probably more going to be tied in with the concrete or some other structural thing in here. It could be a floor down that low level. It could be a wooden floor holding it in. There's something in the design that keeps both the bottom and the top of this wall from moving when we throw dirt at it. That's got to be there before you throw the dirt, but you can do it at any stage of the construction. If you're going to have permanent parts like that, then you want to wait until they're in place before you throw the dirt at the thing. Don't get in a hurry to backfill. Okay? It's going to get you into trouble. Okay, so we got that. Let's take a look what we're going to do. Install floor joist section. It's got a star on it. Means you don't have to do that. So we've installed them already. We didn't want you muscling around with these big heavy things. Now, there's plywood on the top of this, and we did little sections with it all built up. Usually you actually don't bring that in as a section. You'll put your joists in, put the plywood up on the top of that. There may be occasions when this is a very small space where you want to put the floor joists in, do that whole section of that with the header and all of that, but you don't put the plywood on because you actually want to go down and work underneath. Okay, so there may be that you want to do this insulation and all that before it gets closed in, if it's a tight space. If you've got a lot of space, then no worry. We'll get the plywood on quickly, and then we have protection of that whole area, or particularly we have something that will hold the tarpaulin so the tarp can stay and shed the water. Because the tarp over joists tends to do that, right? It doesn't hold a lot of water. It just makes valleys full of water. So you be a little bit careful about that. Now we're going to insulate the rim joists and the trimmer. The rim joists are all this section up in here. We're just going to throw a rock sole up there. It's real simple. You do have to, when you have the floor joists or trusses like this, you have to notch it in the corners. So half of your models have the trusses. The other half of the models have regular joists. We're going to fill it in. We don't put a vapor barrier on that, okay, because it already, in our model, our vapor barrier is out here. We've got foam. This is all sealed off. So one trick for holding the foam in that I thought was kind of cool, the fellows here brought it up, was they just take a little bit of polyethylene and just staple it in. That's all you got to do to hold insulation in place. So these are little strips that are just cut, stapled in, stapled to the top, stapled here, and then that won't fall out, won't move. Okay? After that, we're going to insulate two outer sections of the upper wall. And notice my thing, don't climb on the floor because this is all we got that's holding it up, and I don't want anybody falling through into the basement, okay? So we're only going to work in that corner, forget the stuff in the middle. You all have step ladders there so you can step up and do this. Are you going to do a demonstration for us? Okay. We're going to do a demonstration for this? Notching it up. So he's going to notch that for when you've got to notch it out. So you just simply, why don't you flip around so a camera can get you. There you go. We're going to teach you how to do television. Now you notice he precisely measured that to 1.5 inches. And It's not an, oh, okay. There's a lot of give in there, but it's very quick. But if you don't do that, what happens again is the insulation will sit oddly in place, and that is not a good idea for it to be snug. Then you can just drop that in. It tends to hold so that poly strap to hold it into place is very minimalist for the long term. It's just not going to be falling out. Okay? Now, on the upper wall, what we're going to be doing, there you're stapling that in. On the upper wall up here, we're going to insulate these sections. Just go as far as you can reach. Should be able to reach that section, reach these two sections here, give you a little bit of experience in cutting. Then the poly goes up. Now, that wall should go up. I mean, most people in this house would be very short, okay, if we put the ceiling on right now. So this wall would be going up full height. So what we're doing is bringing up the Tyvek up on this wall. The Tyvek is coming from here. It's sealed to this barrier. It's coming up around here. It's stapled there. And then as you can see with the black marker, it's got acoustical sealant here. And you go on up, and theoretically that would be sealed to the top. All of them are joined around. So basically, we're doing the trimmer area, and we're going up and doing the wall. This is not a vapor barrier. It's held in place. That is a full vapor barrier, and it's caulked. Okay? Simple enough. Should be easier than the last one. The last one, we did a lot of work with the insulation. Any questions? Any questions about any of this as we're going along? Okay, because then the next challenge later on in the afternoon, we're going to turn the wall around and go to the outside and do Tyvek and bug screens and all kinds of strange stuff like that. So, would the contestants, you got all your contestants? Okay, go to your stations, find your stuff, get on your hard hats, use the gloves when you're working with insulation, use the mask.
Important to note too is the make sure the wood is dry. Everything's dry before we're covering these up with insulation and all that.
Ah, good point. He was, Keith was just pointing out, make sure everything's dry before you put the insulation in and seal it up. We don't want to seal the moisture in. So if it's been out in the wet and we finally got a roof on here, let's let it dry out a bit or dry it out so that we have dry walls before we lock that moisture into the walls. Okay? Okay, we got two there, two there, two there, two there. Okay, we got everybody? We want hard hats because we don't want you to bump your head, and besides, it looks better on video. That's right. When the equipment's new, you got to get all those straps right. I remember I used to do a lot of demonstrations at home shows, and every time I came to a home show, they give me a brand new workmate. The bloody thing had to be assembled. I'd rather have a dirty old one that was already put together. Pressure treated wood. The key is that it's dry when it goes in. We keep it dry. If there's a little bit of moisture sometime, it's not going to affect it. It has a much more endurance than if it was regular wood. The wood all on the bottom all has to be pressure treated wood. The wood coming up vertical is pressure treated. If you cut a stud or a stud here, you put the cut end high. And that way you have the fully treated other end down where there might someday be water. And so this one is standing high. It's out of the soil. It's out of the basement. Doesn't matter. The top plate could be regular wood. Okay, you're ready there. We're ready there. We're ready there. We're ready there. Are we ready in the back? No, they're getting their masks on. Now, the judges are going to be, there's not a lot of detailed work, right? So that black crayon. This is your acoustical sealant caulker. Okay? So the hotel wouldn't let me bring acoustical sealant in here. So with the acoustical sealant caulker, don't forget every place that you need to seal that vapor barrier down, you got to have this. Every place you put a staple, it should have acoustical sealant behind the staple, so that you're stapling through the acoustical sealant. Okay? So you should have black markers for doing that. That's a lot. The judges will be looking at that. They'll be looking at how snug and neat your insulation is. Okay, it's a pretty simple run. Everybody all set up? We're almost ready to go here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go. I started out as a cable puller. Now when you're cutting, if you're getting down to the floor, make sure there's wood under your knife for cutting. I don't want to cut the rug, I don't want to cut the Tyvek. Yeah, the bread knife is what's going to cut it the easiest. Oh, he's getting those things stuffed in really quick. Yep, yep. Got on the trimmer. That's called the trimmer on the side. And it's obviously with the joist sections, you can see there's a lot less room to work. It's harder to get that in there. With the trusses, it's a little bit easier. The space is bigger. That's another good example of where when the floor layout is such, you can't see it on my model up there, but when the floor joists come over so close to the outside that that there's hardly any room to get in there, you may have to actually add insulation before you put the joists up to the edge. If you can't get up under there, sometimes that happens. It's just so close that you can't insulate it. Because I've seen places where it's not insulated, and then that, of course, creates moisture problems later. The other thing to notice is here, particularly in these trusses, we got blocking coming out from the side. This is all part of lateral bracing. We have to brace this wall from the soil pushing in. Well, that wall has all of these things pushing it back. If we don't put lateral bracing at least one, sometimes two sections in, then we'll find that this wall can actually bend in because it doesn't have the same support. But by joining at least the first section, if not the first two, that gives rigidity to this end wall. And so in pressure-treated foundations, that's more important than even on a regular foundation, although the lateral bracing can be important. Yeah, just go as far as you can reach. I don't want you climbing up on the floor.
They need a knife at number 2.
We need a knife.
Alpha knife.
Not having power tools, it's all too quiet. We need some background music or something to drive this thing on. When you get hammers and banging, we feel like something's happening. You might find a bread knife easier to work with than that. It's right next to you there, on your right. See the bread knife there? That works a lot better. You just slice with it, a little sawing action. You don't push in so hard as you just sort of saw. Yeah. Actually, for doing that edge, stand it up. Stand it up like this and saw down like that. Now just take that, now saw in there. Watch out, it goes real easy. You see? And then you come across. Isn't that easier? Okay. Watch out, you're going pretty far, but that's what you need to do.
Oops, sorry.
Don't forget you got to get that end one out there too on the trimmer. Don't you love it that the camera gets in closer than we can? Of course, you don't know who's doing what with a camera like that. It's so close. That looks like an ad with his shirt like that, huh? So you're lucky on this one. On the top floor, we don't have to do that inside corner. It's too far for you. So that saves you a lot of trouble.
Doesn't fit me. How do you measure it?
I needed to add that in. It's a good answer.
20.
But, your exterior area is
Yeah, you're going to another 8.5 on top of it.
then it's starting to get it right. It's getting close to the ratio. The point here where he's worried about you're not putting paper area here, and we don't have a lot of insulation here. And then the point that we need to point out is that we're going to be adding styrofoam to the outside. So on the outside, we're going to have that, plus the wood, plus the styrofoam. So we're getting, theoretically, the balance point is 1/3, 2/3. If we put a vapor barrier in the middle of the wall, if it's twice as much insulation on the outside as on the inside. So if we're getting close to that balance point, we get away with it. The problem of automatically putting a vapor barrier there, if there's a lot of insulation up here, is that then we get a sandwich situation where the moisture can't come through here and it can't come back out there. So any moisture in there gets trapped. So it's a tough balance. But if we're getting a significant amount of exterior insulation, then the fact of just using this as insulation, not a vapor control, it works. It's a balance. And it's probably always debatable. Pardon? The ventilation, yeah, ventilation inside. Now, if you have a sauna in the basement, that's a bad idea. You know, or if your clothes dryer vents into the basement, then we'd have to do everything we could possibly do to seal it and keep the moisture out of the insulation. But you will notice that this whole area, coming up here and over there and then coming in, is pretty well really blocking off all of that, which has less insulation on the outside, unless we run the insulation all the way down to the footing, which could be done also. Your styrofoam could go full height. All of that brings you back to constantly leaning on what are the specs of what you're doing. You've got a set of drawings to work from. What do they say? Somebody has worked out those numbers. He's decided this is going to work in this condition. How we doing?
Good.
You're sleeping. You're letting him do all the work.
Oh, I'm waiting.
And you're waiting. You guys got a ladder over there to get up? Yeah, you got a ladder on the back side. You got 2 ladders. Don't try to go where you can't reach. Normally you have a floor to walk on. It'd be easy to get up there. But I don't want you walking on this flimsy floor. We'll ignore the fact you have vapor barrier with no insulation behind it because you weren't going to be doing that hole anyway. Yeah, you just ran right across. Okay. Well, you got the top done, you got to come down and do the bottom. We got 6 minutes left. Nice pad.
Disregard over installation.
Dennis, how are we doing, guys? And gals? Hold on at the bottom, moving along on the top. You're gonna get close. Ooh, we got a lot of work to do.
One more,
Yeah, you're almost finished. That's moving right along. Got two of them almost done. You're making progress here. That's cool. You're gonna lose it all. Yeah, you're getting close to finished. And so are you. 1.5 minutes. I guess we're gonna get a couple of these done on time. You guys are trying to jazz me up here. Tell me I should have a guitar up front and drive the music on. Now, if you've never tried it, I've got to just do a plug for Milwaukee here. Milwaukee has a new stapler out. It's the most beautiful tool I've ever touched. Electric stapler with the Milwaukee 12-volt battery. And what's so wonderful about it is it's heavy. Well, what's good about that? You hold it up and it has mass. You pull the trigger and nothing moves. Staple just goes in. It's fantastic for stapling. It thrives home every time. And you can do jump stapling, or you can just do trigger stapling. Really a nice little machine. I don't think they even have it back there, do you? You didn't bring it. 2, 1. That's the official end of it. Do we have anybody finished? Yes, we do. We have a couple of stations finished. Okay, we'll give you a couple minutes just to finish up the last of them. We can get that done up a little bit more. You guys are done? Okay. You guys are done. You guys are working frantically. And over here, we'll let them throw a couple of staples in, and then we're going to call it quits. Okay, that's it. We got 3 or 4 stations done. So the judge is going to go around and look at it, detailing. Remember, keeping the moisture inside the house. We've got enough insulation in there to keep the inside walls warm. If they're warm, they don't get condensation on them. By the way, if you're having problems of little mold and stuff, as you often do in the communities, look at where it is. It's usually a corner or along a trim piece, something like that. Look at, is it air current blowing through, chilling that inside? And if it's not, if you can't get any air currents, you put cigarette smoke down there and something and it doesn't blow, and there's nothing blowing around, then it's probably a mistake in insulation. The insulation is moved or was never placed properly, so we have a cold spot. Now, if we get mold over the whole wall, you got a problem, too much moisture in the house. If you get just a little spot, it's probably coldness coming in. Yeah. What if it's just a roof? Just a roof?
Yeah, like what if the roof is not fully insulated and it gets...
But you're talking about the ceiling or the roof? Roof. Do you have a cathedral ceiling? Okay, so you have a cathedral ceiling, so your roof, and then it's a small space, right? So you have what we call a compact roof, because the ceiling's there and the roof is there, and you need a lot of insulation and ventilation both to make this thing work. And so one of the biggest things is people will take a design out of California and build it in the north. Okay, it's a beautiful California open design cathedral ceiling with maybe 6 inches of insulation between it and the Yukon. That gets into trouble. And so it's usually, if it's the whole ceiling that's giving you trouble, you say the roof is it, but is it the ceiling that's moldy or your roof that's moldy? The roof is moss and things like that growing on it. That's not caused by either insulation or anything else. Usually if it's all moss growing on the top, that's shaded, it's like in the north side, and you may just have to deal with that. One of the ways to do it, as long as you have enough rainfall, is zinc. Little zinc strips you put under the topmost shingle, and the rain will slowly pull. It won't remove moss, but it will prevent moss from growing. So if you've cleaned the moss off, that will keep it from coming back. Just little zinc strips that they put tuck it under the last shingle. It shows up. You see this little metal line. But for years and years, it drips down a little bit of zinc, and the zinc will prevent moss from growing back. But that's moss. You get it on the north side of the trees, right? We get it on the north side of the house. Your house is like a tree when it's out there. Everybody done? How we doing, judges? They're still working. Okay. The other thing you really need to pay attention to, and you'll see information about it out in the exhibition area here, is to make sure you have proper ventilation that's being used. And the better your ventilation system, the less energy it takes, because it has energy recuperation, the more you can have fresh air and not pay a lot to heat it. And the fresh air helps to control the humidity in a house when if it's overly humid for whatever is going on, usually a lot of human activity. Now, while I got just a minute to talk, I want to encourage you after this, when you go out and see the exhibition, don't miss the exhibition space. If you go out into the hallway where the coffee is, and you go down towards where we were eating, you can see just off to the right, there's a big sign that says more exhibits. There's some people tucked away in a whole room back there that a lot of you have missed. Worth taking a visit. Go back and visit them back there. They'll be happy to see you coming in. Problem is we're growing so much, we're taking every room we can find in the hotel. We used to have a big room for this, and we had to take half the cafeteria. Hey, the judges are having a hard time. Yeah. Did you have a decision? No, they're working on it. Okay. Can I get you to go back and get a microphone from the back for her, the judge? Oh, we got it right here. And it's on. Okay. We need a drum roll. What's this? Oh, our caulking gun is dead. Okay. He got walked on. Now you see, aren't you happy that was not acoustical sealant? As you walk over with a foot full. Nice. Are we on? Yes, you're on.
It's team number 3, Bernard from Maryland and Irvin from Constance Lake. The winners are team number 3. Congratulations, guys.
Wow, complete with hammers. There you go. Despite the fact you killed our caulking gun. Good, thank you. Yeah, let's get a photo. Let me get in the middle here. Come on in.
All right. What about the rest of the judges?
You're a stand-in for the judges. Okay. Number 1. Okay. So we're back. What time? Who knows what time we're back? 3 o'clock.
So actually,
Yes.
if we can start at 2:45.
2:45. He wants to start at 2:45. Okay, we'll try.
Anyway, we can start at 2:45.
Let's try to start at 2:45. We'll see if we can do it.
One more person.
One more person. One more person to fit up team. She's going to do it. Okay.
I got her already.
Oh, you got her already. Okay. Okay. So go have coffee. Visit the exhibits. Don't forget these guys in the back room back there.